Okay, so we're starting off with a quick template here. I put the paths in already, and we just want to open. So as you can see over here, the images are way too big, so we're going to put some CSS in order to size that down. With the image tag, we're going to add a height of 30 VH, and basically VH is going to be view height. So as you can see, it's about 30% of that screen. Now, the buttons are right next to each other, so we're just going to put a BR tag, which is a break line tag. Now we're going to go in and create some functionality for that next button that we have for both the bottom and the top. So the two next buttons are there so that you can click on them and it'll show you the next shirt. So for that, we first need to create an array or a list of all the shirts possible. Now, in JavaScript, you cannot really store the actual image in the list. However, you can store the path to the image or the address of the image. And that's what we're going to do. And then next thing we need to do is we need to show like a counter that says, where am I in this array and how can I get to the next shirt? So we're going to create a variable called shirts, and that is going to contain our list or array. And basically, we want to add in the path to our image, and that means girls is going to be our folder, and then our shirt1.png is the image name. And when you hover over it again, it will show you if your path is correct because it gives you a little picture of it. So go ahead and do that with everything as well as the pants. Okay, so now in order for our function to work, we need to replace our first image, shirt1, with another image from this array. So we're doing document get element by ID, and we are adding an ID to our image tags so that we can reference those image tags in our function. Now when you do document.getElement.id, you want to grab the source. The source is going to be your path of your image. So now we want to go into our array and find that second image. And again, arrays start with index 0, so we're going to start with 1 because we want the second image. We want to put the second image there. So the next will go from the first image to the second image. And then do the same thing with the pant. Okay, now the next buttons work, but they only give the next image. We want to go through the list and pick the next one in the list. So what we want to do is we want to start putting a variable that will remember what position it's at in the array and then increment it to the next one. And the thing is, the variable has to be outside the function. So there's something called a global scope, and then you have the scope inside the function. When you put it outside the functions in just the regular script, like the body of the script, it's going to be in your global. That means it's going to remember it in whichever function. So we have top counter and bottom counter in the global. However, the shirts array is going to be inside the function. That means you can't access that variable outside the function. So we're going to initialize the top counter and the bottom counter to 0 so that we can increment it from 0. Initializing just means starting at 0. So it's always going to start at 0 and it's going to keep incrementing every time you press that button. Okay, so what we're gonna do is go ahead and add that counter instead of that 0 or 1 inside of the index for that array. So we can do it top counter, or the number that's in top counter, rather than just a static number. And then we're gonna increment it before we put it in or access our array. So we're going to increment it by doing top counter is equal to top counter plus 1 and bottom counter is equal to bottom counter plus 1. So it's going to take what is already in top counter, which is the previous value, add 1 to it, which makes it the next value. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it out. Oops. So if you can see this, when I click the next button after 3 presses, it just doesn't give me an image. And that's because in our array, we only have those 4 shirts. So if it's more than those shirts, it's not going to display anything. So we want to try to fix that. And the way we fix that is we want to check if our counter is at that last shirt. And when it is at that last shirt, we want to change the counter to the first shirt. So what we do is we have this thing called an if condition. If our counter is the last shirt, which is our 3rd position in that array, we want to change it to our 0th position. And that's basically the if statement. And an if statement is going to have if, then your condition. If that's true, then do an action. So if top counter is equal to 3, that checks if top counter is equal to 3. Equal to sign is a checker. And basically, if that's true, if top counter equals to 3, then we want to put the value of 0 inside top counter and go back to the first shirt. And we kind of do the same thing with the bottom counter. Again, if bottom counter is equal to the last position, which here is equal to 3, we want to take bottom counter and then increment that, replace that with 0 so that we make it the first shirt, first pant. Oh, it broke. So basically here I made a mistake and I made top counter misspelled because it needs to be capital C. So after I fix that mistake, hopefully it works. Okay. Woohoo. Oh, that broke as well. So I'm trying to see my mistake here. I got the path name wrong. It is JPG instead of PNG for the last image. How confusing. Awesome, it works. So another feature that we saw on the Clueless video clip was her having this browse button, and basically you would randomize both the shirt and the pant so it would mix and match and you can think of new ideas for your outfit. So here we're again making a function called randomize and then a button that says on click and calls our function randomize. So in here, we want to get a random number between 0 to 3 because that's how many shirts we have. And that's the indexes we want it from. So we want to go onto Google and type in get random integer between certain numbers. And I'm just going through these documentation and I'm trying to find a function that fits for me. So copying the get random integer between 2 values inclusive, so it takes in both 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to paste it into my brackets editor. So this is cool because now I can use other people's functions. And in this, they basically return that random integer. That return there will give you, when you use that function, it returns it and puts it into that random number. So you can use a function, you can call a function inside another function just to make things easier for yourself. And you don't have to write the math for that. So now in order to just show you what's happening, I'm going to print out that random number we got from the function in a window.alert. And I'm also going to just do some little design stuff there. Click browse, gives me 1, 3, so it's just all random. So as you can see, that random number is filled up. Every time you click on randomize, you get a random number. So all we need to do now is get a random path to that image. Now the thing is, because those arrays are inside of the functions, I can't access them because they're not in the global scope. So I'm going to put them outside the functions so that any of the functions can access those lists or arrays. And now when I go inside my randomize, I basically want to put one of those paths inside of the images, right? So just like we did above in NextTop, where we put it to the next counter, here we're going to get document by ID, get that top, and go to your array and have a random top instead of the next top. So instead of having shirts top counter, we have shirts random number. And because we have both top and bottom, and we both want them different random numbers, we want to get random number twice. So we're going to get random number top and random number bottom. We're going to call that random number function twice so that we have different numbers. Put that into the index for that array and get random shirts and random pants. Double checking that everything works. Now we want to reload the browser. Next function still works, didn't break anything, and there you go. So it randomly changes it. And you have an outfit picker. Okay, awesome. See you next class.